wanted to give you an opportunity. You had a story about Ted Cottrell getting honored by the Hall of Fame. What can you tell me about that story?
They do like an awards of excellence. It's every June. They do it for assistant coaches, trainers, team doctors, different things like that. And he's one of three that's getting honored in June. And I hadn't talked to Ted in over, well, I led the story with, I hadn't talked to him. So he was a defensive coordinator of the Chargers on that day at the Metrodome when Adrian Peterson in his 8th NFL game, a force of nature that's unto itself, goes out there, and Ted's got injuries on the defensive line. He's got injuries at linebacker, and by the time he gets to the halftime, he's got injuries at all three levels: secondary, linebacker, defensive line. Adrian had 43 yards in the first half. That's people forget, just a 43-yard game. And at the second half, he runs for 253 yards and 3 touchdowns on 17 carries. And that's a 15-yard average per carry. Now, that's an interesting way to start for a story when a guy is being honored by the Hall of Fame. But my point was, was kind of a low point for this guy. And I say that, he had more good days than bad days. But I remember talking to Ted, and Ted, had worked for the Vikings as defensive coordinator. He's the reason Pat Williams ended up going from Buffalo, where Ted was, to Minnesota and having a fantastic Pro Bowl career for the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
So Ted had, was in the visitors' locker room and talking to him, and most people might have said, hey, get lost, buddy. We just got stomped. And so Ted, we're talking, and Ted, he's down obviously, and we finish up, and he starts walking, and he's going the wrong way because he's on the other side. He's going to the team bus, and he's walking, and I say, hey, Ted, you're going the wrong way. So he shakes his head. He comes back, and he puts his arm on my shoulder and goes, it's been that kind of day. Yeah. And the point of it, this is also a guy who was Bruce Smith's presenter at the Hall of Fame. Wow. Bruce Smith said that Ted is the guy that, made him a complete player. Ted is a guy that is part of the 3-4, even though we did a 4-3 here, but the 3-4 history. He did some things with the nose tackle that people weren't doing. So there's a lot of that in the story, but it's also that moment of he's at his low point.